someone that I know cares so deeply about this. We talk as we go back and forth. So, Ann, I appreciate you being here, and we'll just turn it over to you. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for inviting me to testify today. I want to begin by thanking you for your very special leadership over all of the years, and that of Congressman Jim McGovern, too. I consider you the conscience of the Congress, and that's not something that's just given, that's earned. And you have earned that over the years because of the work that you've done on human rights throughout the world, and you have my really lasting gratitude for what you have done and what you continue to do. And I think that it's a particularly fitting tribute to this Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission and what it's all about. Experts, as I understand it, are going to address the situation facing the Coptic Christians, so I'm going to focus my remarks on Iraq. Just by way of background, my grandparents fled the Middle East. They were Christians, and they fled with their children, young children, my parents, because they were being slaughtered, in plain English. They were being slaughtered. Christians were being slaughtered. So this story is tightly woven into my American identity and my family's history. Today, I believe that history is repeating itself. And these are the stories that were told to me at my grandparents' knees. And so, as I said, it's very much a part of who and what I am. It's important to note that the Christians of Iraq, Iran, Israel, Egypt, Syria are the oldest in the world. Christianity was, from the beginning, a Middle Eastern religion. The Assyrian Catholics, the Chaldeans, and many people are not really aware of this. The Chaldean rite is the oldest rite under Rome. There are 13 rites in the Catholic Church, and the Chaldean rite is the oldest. And the Chaldeans actually celebrate Mass in Aramaic, which is the language that Jesus spoke. And for 2,000 years, Christians have been a key part of the Middle Eastern community. As recently as the turn of the 20th century, Christians comprised 20% of the Middle East population. In modern times, the situation for Christians and other ethnic and religious minorities in the region has worsened, and today they make up less than 5% of the population. Persecution and targeted violence, including the genocidal campaign that forced my mother's Armenian family to flee the Ottoman Empire, shaped a region increasingly hostile to religious diversity. During Saddam Hussein's regime, a large and stable Christian community persisted in Iraq. At the time of the U.S. invasion, there were some 1.4 million Assyrian, Chaldean, Syriac, and other Christians in Iraq, alongside small communities of Yazidis, Mandaeans, and Jews. Today, less than one-third of them remain, and these ancient religious communities face complete extinction. This tragic process began in the chaos following the U.S. invasion in 2003. And I say this not to make a political statement. This is an observation of what has occurred. But only recently has a series of high-profile attacks attracted the world's attention. On October 31st of this last year, an al-Qaeda affiliate massacred worshippers at Baghdad's Our Lady of Salvation Assyrian Catholic Church, where Mass was being celebrated. Imagine people praying and celebrating Mass in the language that Jesus spoke, and the attack left more than 60 worshipers, 2 priests, and police dead. On December 31st, a bomb detonated on the doorstep of 2 elderly Christians in Baghdad, killing both. This was one of 7 Christian homes that was targeted that same evening. These attacks grab headlines, and officials issue press releases and condemn them, and they should be condemned. The pervasive, grinding discrimination Iraqi minorities face every single day, however, doesn't really make the news. Riding the bus and shopping in markets, Iraqi Christians are threatened with death if they don't leave. Even in the face of these threats, many communities have stood resilient. Still, without real protection from the Iraqi government or anything from us, the United States, the challenge will simply prove too great, and for many it already has. Add to the background that I just described, a bishop was murdered and other priests have been as well. Convents have been burned and churches set afire. Religious leaders are speaking out. In the lead up to the March elections last year, Pope Benedict XVI called on the Iraqi government to restore security for the population and the most vulnerable religious minorities. In his Christmas address just a handful of weeks ago, he once again called for solidarity with Iraq's Christians, offering a prayer to, quote, ease the pain and bring consolation amid their trials to the beloved Christian communities in Iraq and throughout the Middle East. This past summer, I was able to participate, and I know that the chairman also participated in a rare summit here in Washington, D.C. with Iraq's minority Christian leaders, each of whom expressed frustration and even desperation because we have failed to take meaningful action to address their plight. Their besieged congregations are dwindling, and they're afraid. In fact, they're terrified. To put it simply, as Christians and other minorities disappear from the country, I really fear the prospect for a pluralistic and democratic Iraq, that will vanish with them. In Congress, we've been working for several years. Congressman Wolf, the co-chairs of the Religious Minorities in the Middle East Caucus, as well as several others, dedicated members to bring this situation to light. During the previous administration, it was very difficult, I think, to get the foreign policy establishment to recognize that the invasion had precipitated this humanitarian crisis. And in the current administration, attention to this issue may have improved somewhat, but most frankly, not as quickly, and to bring the relief to the Christians in this situation and the deterioration of the situation. The appointment of the Deputy Assistant Secretary Michael Corbin has been welcomed to focus on religious minorities, but we have to do more. We just simply have to do more. Working across party lines, this is not a partisan issue in any way, shape, or form. Congress directed specific funding in fiscal 2009 and 10 toward protection and development efforts for Iraq's religious minorities. But the distribution of these funds has not been transparent. And I've been told repeatedly by people on the ground that many of the communities don't even know about the availability. This money and this effort, I think, is too important to lose in any bureaucracy. For the sake of our constituents, who are the taxpayers, and for the struggling minorities in Iraq, we need to account for this money and refocus our efforts. So at my request, more than a dozen House colleagues and 4 senators have joined in requesting that the GAO conduct an audit of the funds. This is already taking place, and the GAO is going to report back to the Congress on this. I don't doubt the good intentions of the State Department and USAID, but crises call for more than good intentions. I feel strongly that the administration must lay out a comprehensive strategy. I don't know, they've talked about a basket or a market basket or something to that effect. But this is not reaching the people that are affected. We know that. So we need to be doing more. Such a strategy must articulate specifically how we will distribute assistance, protect these communities, and work with the Iraqi government to identify and prosecute those who attack them. The strategy, I believe, must also include a streamlined mechanism for asylum seekers to immigrate to the United States. The religious leadership have stated and restated this over and over again. I think we have a responsibility to accommodate those Christians for whom the situation has become impossible, even as we work to improve conditions there. And the future of these ancient communities, and indeed the result of our very costly efforts in Iraq, may well depend on it. So, Mr. Chairman, my colleague, Mr. Holt, and to everyone that has been a part of this Human Rights Commission, the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission, we have yet another crisis to deal with in the world. I think as Americans who believe in a pluralistic society where we value so highly in our Constitution the place of faith in our nation, this is part of our values. And this is one of the most important values that we export around the world, that this be front and center in terms of the work that you do here. You know that you have my ongoing commitment. I think this is a sorrowful situation. And people are enduring a great deal. There is no question that Christians are targeted. Christians are targeted. So that's the work that is before us. I will work with you to help bring the relief and the notice that this deserves, and I hope that we can really move this up the set of priorities in the State Department, because I think these people deserve it. In fact, they are desperate for it. Thank you very much. It's an honor to appear before you. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question for you. Thank you very much for your testimony.